Hi, this is Zibby Owens, and you're listening to Totally Booked with Zibby, formerly Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. In my daily show, I interview today's latest best-selling, buzziest, or underrated authors and story creators whose work I think is worth your time. As a bookstore owner, publisher, author, and obviously podcaster, I get a comprehensive look at everything that's coming out and spend my time curating the best books so you don't have to. Stay in the know, get insider insights, and connect with guests like I do every single day. For more information, go to zibbymedia.com and follow me on Instagram at Zibby Owens. Bonnie Tsui is the author of On Muscle, The Stuff That Moves Us and Why It Matters. Bonnie is a longtime contributor to the New York Times and the best-selling author of Why We Swim, a New York Times book review, editor's choice, and a Time Magazine and NPR Best Book of the Year. It's currently being translated into 10 languages. Bonnie is also the author of American Chinatown, which won the Asian Pacific American Award for Literature, and Sarah and the Big Wave, a children's book about the first woman to surf Mavericks, and a Junior Library Guild Gold Standard selection. She was, by the way, on this podcast before. Her work has been recognized and supported by Harvard University, the National Press Foundation, the Mesa Refuge, and the Best American Essays series. She lives, swims, and surfs in the Bay Area. Welcome, Bonnie. Yay, On Muscle. So exciting. The Stuff That Moves Us and Why It Matters. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's great to be talking with you again about bodies in the world.
Yes, exactly. After Why We Swim, and you were a contributor to the anthology and all of the good stuff, and your children's book. Anyway, you've been just all over the place. Okay, I have to say, as I was reading the book, there was a part where you talk about the test, like the mortality test, if you can stand on one leg for 10 seconds. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, so I literally got up. I was reading on the bed with my son while he was reading, and I holding the book, got up and started balancing on one leg and then balancing on the other leg. And he's like, "What are you doing?" So then the two of us were balancing on one leg.
You're like, "We're gonna live forever. It's amazing."
Yeah, I was like, "Can I balance for 10 seconds? I don't know." Yeah, and then I end up doing these yoga poses, and he's like, "What are you doing now?" And
my gosh, I love that.
Your book made me move. I could not physically sit still while reading this book about movement and muscle and all of that. So,
well, mission accomplished, done. Okay, great. Love it. My work here is done. No, it makes me so happy to hear that, because I really wanted this book. And it's funny, right? Because we often think about our brain and body as being kind of divorced from one another, or at least not as unified. And I love hearing that when you were reading the book, you did want to move and engage bodily with it, because that's how I felt when I was writing it. I wanted to transmit that sensory experience of what I was learning and feeling in myself onto the pages. And so that's just so heartening to hear that you felt that when you were reading.
Well, you turn your sort of journalistic brain onto muscle in all of its different parts, even after the body has died, or after, all of the full range. And that was very interesting. But the overlay of the whole book was really it could have been called On My Dad, because it was so much about your relationship with him, which was so incredibly poignant. And the book felt to me like the olive branch to really connect with him in a deeper way. So talk about your inspiration for the book, how your dad plays into everything. And
well, for so many of us, our family, right, and our parents specifically they reach into our lives in ways that sometimes we don't even understand until later life. And so I think I always felt, when I was a child, I felt really close to my dad. And you gathered that from the pages of the book. And, he was the artist and the martial artist and the person who trained my brother and myself up in his studio to be these these tiny humans who understood the power of physicality, but also the aesthetic appreciation of the body, right? And art. And I'm myself because of that, right? And so, after my parents split up and he moved back from New York, where we lived, and I was born, to Hong Kong and then on to mainland China, where he lives now. It's hard. I mean, it's also hard when your parents divorce or separate when you're in your formative years, like as a teenager, like a young teenager, and then through that time into young adulthood, and you kind of are navigating that, what the world is anyway for yourself. And I was navigating myself, right? Who was I without this very signal person in my life? And I think I've sort of spent, it's not an exaggeration to say that I've spent the last many decades kind of still trying to figure that out, and also like appreciate his influence on my life, like even if he's not geographically near me or we aren't as close contact as we were when I was a kid. And but those feelings are powerful and they last a long time. I have children of my own, and I look at them and I think about what my influence on them will be. And so it's a very point, it's like it's all full circle, and all, I think, for all of us to come together in various points of the book and to be able to, like, because I started writing this book during COVID, and so I could not see him. And it really wasn't until the very, very end, almost when it was almost like missing the deadline to finish the manuscript. Like wasn't sure if I could see him in person because, China was the first place to shut down and then the last place to open up to the world, the rest of the world again. And so that there was this funny irony of like trying to figure out how to physically be in the same place as this person who the book, as you so rightly point out, is really about that relationship foundationally.
Wow. Well, your dad was very accomplished as a martial artist, as you said, and I think brown belt or what, brown belt.
All the belts.
all the belts. He was, and you have this through line of the book, making a muscle, and how it starts there and sort of it ends all the way. It was just like this perfect ending, the way you wrap everything up. But you talk about how his appreciation for the physical ran through everything, right? And when he did eventually see you and said, "Oh, you look strong," that was like the highest praise ever. And that you were measuring your shoulders against each other to see how strong.
I mean, this is what I grew up with, and it is funny. I mean, it is, I look at the world differently now after like examining muscle in this like 360-degree way, right? Like I wanted to be as curious about it as he seemed to have been for me, like when I was watching him, throughout my childhood. And so even now, like when we met up again at the end of the book, like to understand that this is still something that preoccupies him. He's like almost 80 and he still lives this way. It's fascinating.
And you point out too, like, he was so far away, and yet all of the modern conveniences like didn't deepen your relationship. Like you're like, he's not into FaceTime or email or whatever. He's not good on the phone. Yeah. Like he's like when you're with him, he focuses on you, and you feel like, but like that's so hard to feel that that something is out there but out of your grasp.
Yeah, and I think all of us really had that presented in stark relief during COVID, right? And like that we did not appreciate and understand what it is to be in someone's presence and to feel physically connected with them, even if you're not touching, like tangibly touching someone in the room. If I was in that room with you, we would be reading each other's body language, our posture, making eye contact, maybe we, like a shoulder squeeze or something. And it's just, there's no, I gave myself like chills up my spine just saying that, because I do feel that connection is so imperative to us as human beings. And so when we miss it and we don't get to have it, and then we do get to have it, it's just, there's no substitute for it. And I think like examining muscle and what muscle enables us to do, to physically move and to be closer and further away and from each other as individuals, and then in community and moving together is so powerful. I think that just made me, I wanted to communicate that through the book and how precious that is.
Well, one part was particularly poignant to me. It ends with you sitting with your father-in-law who has ALS, and I'm so sorry as you detailed that diagnosis. And you have this really memorable scene with your father-in-law in his wheelchair. After getting all this knowledge about the body and movement from, I think his name is Matt, who is
Matt Sanford,
Matt Sanford, right? Who is a quadriplegic, paraplegic,
yeah.
Paraplegic. Okay,
No,
He was a
no.
paraplegic, whatever. Anyway, relied on yoga training to really make more connections throughout his body and to feel some of these sort of shivers up, up and down his body. And that
Yeah.
sometimes there are ways to use yoga and the body to do things that maybe science hasn't exactly brought to the forefront or said was impossible or whatever. And you have this scene with your father-in-law where your hands are on his knees and you're like, we're going to go for a walk. And he's in the wheelchair, but you just like push down on his knees to make him feel like he goes on a walk and his whole face like lights up. And then you're like, we'll go on a walk another day. Oh my gosh, Bonnie, I was like crying. It was so beautiful.
It was, and it's hard to, I think sometimes it's hard to know what to do to help someone. And ALS is a big thing, right? It's a big, big thing. And I think you also have to understand, you have to hold at the same time the reality that you can't do anything to change the reality. And yet there is something that you can do in the moment physically to touch and to bring relief in some way. And that's what Matt Sanford taught me. Like I won't ever forget like the time we spent together because he taught me not only the thinking behind adaptive yoga, but also how we can better connect to each other, even through discomfort, even through not knowing the right thing to do, to kind of keep trying to reach out to try. And I think that really was a huge lesson to me. Because we all exist on this continuum of like illness and health and ability to disability and life to death. And so like to situate yourself on that continuum, like, and you're constantly moving along it as you move through life, like that was, that helped me understand so much about just who we are, like, and also like what we're capable of physically, over our lifespan. And also that, muscle is so amazing because it is like probably one of the most adaptable tissues in the body, is always changing. And so that like that philosophically teaches us that we can also keep changing and improving and doing better.
Yes. Well, the story of Matt Sanford, maybe talk a little more about it. He was in a car accident. His father and sister were killed.
Yes.
And he lost function of his body. And then now he is a guru. So just tell us more because I summarized.
So this is in the flexibility section of the book. And so Matt Sanford is this like pretty renowned yogi, I guess. And he's a yoga teacher who really specialized and pioneered adaptive yoga. And so when he was 13, he was in a car accident with his family, as you recalled. And his father and sister were killed, and he became paralyzed from the chest down. And he was an athlete. He played basketball as a kid. He was just like very embodied. And I think like one of the things that he talked about when he was telling me about how he came to the practice of yoga and how to be doing what he's doing now is that he remembered very vividly being told, now you have to focus on keep making your upper body strong, right? So like, and you would see, and he's like sort of, and it was almost like the doctors would tell him like, if you feel phantom sensations like down your spine and your legs, that's not real, right? Like that's in a nutshell. But like, and so he felt very shattered, right? Because he's like, I do feel something. I feel something that's like a buzz or like a vibration or like some energy, electricity. And so for a long time, he felt very divorced. Like he felt like he was like he wanted to be integrated. And so I think like this, we all want to be a whole beings, but you can't kind of ignore your paralyzed body in favor of your non-paralyzed body. And so that's like I think he was talking about how like that was, maybe that's ableist thinking, but it's not true to his experience. And so it's so interesting because he talked about how he would have these sensations, and it's not like he's, we're not talking about like a spontaneous regeneration of nerves that have been severed. It's not that, but that we have knowledge in our bodies and information, not just proprioception, like these kind of receptors all over, like generally speaking, like externally, but also like inside, and interoception, which are other receptors, but that we're talking about how things that we're feeling. We feel hunger, we feel tired, we have, muscle spindles are like, sensory, we get information receptors about like, when you're feeling like you're stretching beyond what your muscles can handle. That's interoception. So that's like information that we're getting from inside our body that we're not necessarily conscious of. And what he was feeling, again, like the science is like catching up. I love like when the science catches up to intuition that people have talked about for a long time. But it's all about like, even when you move your body passively, if I move, and Matthew was explaining to me, like if I move my legs with my hands, my body is getting information about my body in space, even if my legs are paralyzed. And so it's like interoceptive information. And again, we get into the weeds in this in the book, but it just made me think about understanding the health of the body and mind. Like it is important to move, even if you can't voluntarily move those parts of your body anymore, because that is about integrating your all of the parts of yourself so that you feel whole, you feel balanced, you feel the energy flowing, because the body still needs to move, even if like certain muscles are not under your voluntary purview anymore. I don't know. It was really profound and amazing to learn.
I found that so interesting and just so encouraging too for many people who might feel just so stuck. And yet there's this other way, which maybe they already knew. But also I've spent a lot of time, and this is going to be embarrassing, Googling proprioception before the book because I don't think I have proprioception. Like,
oh no.
Yeah, I can't tell when someone's close to me at all. So I'm constantly being surprised. I'm constantly jumping and being like, because you can come right next to me and I won't feel it.
That's hilarious.
I don't know what's wrong with me. And maybe I'm losing my hearing too. And so people are just constantly surprising me. But I'm like, what is wrong with me? I thought you were going to say
something about running into things, because I always run into things. And that is like, like feeling your body in space is like the general explanation of like what proprioception is. But I constantly run, like I know that the counter is there, but I constantly run into it with my hip. You know what I mean?
Me too. I have a bruise on my hip right now from like walking in. Right. But I'm like, where do I end and the world begins, basically?
Hey, we can still we're doing great. Even if you're running into things, you're still like, it reminds you, your body in the world.
But I am not surfing. Like, you have another piece of the book, and this is, I guess, back to the combination of muscle and your dad and everything. But you've used your muscle to literally walk on water, right? You talk about surfing and what it feels like and how you've like mastered that. And then you have this connective moment again with your dad where he's talking about how before anyone's awake where he lives, he goes on these dark morning runs, and you like to be out on the water, and you both are finding quiet in the world through movement. And that was just so beautiful.
Thank you. And, and it was funny to be talking to him about that, because in the beginning of the book, I talk about how when we were kids, after dinner at like 10 o'clock at night, he would take us in the dark to run like a mile to like our pediatrician's office, to the parking lot, because there was a parking lot where he could run around and do his exercises, and then my brother and I could play. But we would do that. And it was funny because when I was talking about this with him, like the surfing part, and when he would get up in the pre-dawn night like I would to exercise now, it totally, I realized as we were talking about this later on that I thought, oh, this is what we used to do. This is what we used to do. And so it kind of felt connective in a way that, maybe we didn't realize consciously in the moment, but it did feel right. And it did feel, again, over this gulf between, of distance, geographic distance. I live in California, he lives in China, that we can still, there's like an echo of these movements past. And I think that's helpful to me. I don't know.
Yeah, it's beautiful and inspiring. And you talk about like all the feats that the body can actually accomplish, none of which I have accomplished either, by the way. So just like how people can push themselves and develop their muscles and just do all these. I mean, it's amazing what the body can do. I mean, it sounds so obvious, but you really spell it out for us.
Well, I think that I wanted to include those stories of these great stories of people who both ordinary and extraordinary, who could do incredible things, who accomplished incredible things, but those stories tell you how much power and possibility you hold in your own body. And I think that's what I would want people to take away from the book, right? That they are inspired by not just learning about muscles and how important muscles are in their own lives, your own lives, our own lives, but that to learn what someone else went through could be galvanizing to like try something new, or like get up and take a walk, or try like just to keep trying. And I think that's like to keep pushing against all the forces that would like push you down, I guess is the thing. And that's what we were resisting. It's resistance against like all the things that would be difficult. And, even though you feel like you're getting pushed back down, that you keep rising.
I love that. I know every chapter is like a metaphor for life.
Yeah.
Right? It's all,
It was, Zibby, that was so fun to get to do, by the way, like to like understand how our language betrays our thoughts, like how we talk about the body and be like, grit through it, like muscle through it. And we're like, no, relax. Like all of those words are like bodily states of muscle. Like isn't that interesting?
Yes. Crazy. I know. Basically, we have no original thoughts. We have to just
our body's talking to us.
Our body. Okay. So what else are you working on? Not that you need to be working on anything else, but what's coming next for you and all of that?
I, this book has been a really heavy lift. I keep thinking that it's just like such a good metaphor that I'm just like, you and I are talking and it's like a little over a month out from publication, and I'm trying to tamp down my anxiety by like going for swims and surfs and like lifting weights. And I'm just hoping to enjoy the ride, like when it comes, because books take so long and you put so much of your heart into it, and then when you put them out in the world, you don't have control over that baby anymore, and the uncertainty around its safe passage into the world. So I just I'm very appreciative of you for
thanks.
Being part of that journey of safe passage into the world, and I just hope that people read and enjoy the book. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they will all be jumping in, which we also have a whole chapter on jumping and this one man who like jumps into the water every single day and the power of jumping. So we will be jumping into your book. And thank you so much for talking about it with me. And, it was just so, yes, I learned, but I'm telling you, these poignant moments in the book were unexpected. And I mean, not totally unexpected because you're a beautiful writer and I knew that, but that you weave them in so well and make us really feel and like think about our own relationships. And I certainly was thinking about my own relationship with my dad and all those moments. And anyway, it was deep on every level. I could find an analogy of muscle, but it was
joy. And I also want the joy to be like, that because there's joy in movement. And I want us to remember that, like that exercise as play or movement as play is something that we all need and can have like as we get older still. Like it's not something that you need to give up.
And yet ironically, I'm just going to sit in my chair all day and
you're going to get
look at you on Zoom and
you're going to do some jumping jacks. You're going to do some burpees.
No burpees in my future. Literally the last time I did burpees, I like slipped a disc in my back and I was like, I'm too old for this. Yeah.
All right. No burpees. No. Jumping jacks are good.
All right. Well, thank you. Congratulations, Bonnie. So exciting.
Thank you.
On muscle.
Great to see you.
Great to see you too. All right. Bye, and hope to see you in the store in LA.
Yes. Okay. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Totally Booked with Zibby, formerly Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. If you loved the show, tell a friend, leave a review, follow me on Instagram at Zibby Owens, and spread the word. Thanks so much. Oh, and buy the books.